So in lieu of some of the things that have transpired in the last few days, without having to get into the details of that, but it had me thinking about something. And correct me if I am wrong, but really the world that we have here in America can be encapsulated by this, right? Which is we basically have a black dash white world divide. Okay, so even people that live in these ethnic enclaves, the desire is to eventually live the way white people do. To have some semblance of structure, right? Family, work is an integral part of these enclaves, right? And and yes, it's essentially a seasoned version of that, right? But the neighborhoods are still somewhat intact, right? In a black world, right? These black areas, degeneracy is in full display. All right, weed smoking, drinking, baby mothers, absent fathers, Section 8 housing, violence, slang, food stamps. All right, and I'm not saying that other minorities don't also do the same thing. I'm sure some of them do. My neighbor, for example, I mean, total deadbeat, right? Living on Section 8, his baby mother, right? I'm assuming it's his baby mother. 4 kids, all look different. I'm assuming all different fathers, right? Mess, they scream, they yell. Cops come all the time to pick his ass up, and then he comes back every couple of weeks. And that's like sort of the rhythm of what I'm talking about, right? So you have these ethnic enclaves, where you have these ethnic groups, right? These minorities that sort of mimic, right? And sort of shadow that type of culture. Um, and a white world is more refined, educated, proper, if you will, right? There's a semblance of, there's an understanding, right, that this is the way we're supposed to conduct ourselves and behave. And people could say, well, why is that only reserved for whites? Well, it's the ones that conduct themselves properly. What do you want me to do about that? If no one else wants to act accordingly because they want to be different or because they want to present themselves as tough, then that's on them. Nobody forced them to behave this way. Um, so there's essentially two Americas. So it's like which way to go. And like I said, I've lived in this sort of black world, and it's just like it's not cute, it's not sexy, it's corny, it's ugly, it's hideous. And anybody who thinks otherwise, especially like white liberals in particular, they have this idea that like, oh, blacks are oppressed. So it's like, yeah, buddy, go live in proximity to black people, and you'll understand what I'm talking about. Because a lot of times, that's what it is the distance from the problem allows you to sort of romanticize it and think it's not them, it's the system. They've been brought up and conditioned to behave a certain way, right? That's the argument. But let me go ahead and tell you, when I lived in one of these black areas, the majority of the school was black. It was probably maybe upwards of 50%, a little bit more, probably even of the student population was black, right? And I don't want to call myself a victim, but I unfortunately, suffered, violence at the hands of one of these monsters. And Buddy Sucker punched me with brass knuckles. Somebody that doesn't even know me, right? It was just based on the fact that he was just a racist scumbag. Didn't like the fact that I was, in his mind, Mexican. And so he was going to inflict maximum harm, maximum damage, even though he didn't know me. And what was interesting about that whole thing was, he only got like 3 months in juvenile hall, So it's like people want to talk about like, oh yeah, black people are getting unlawfully locked up or getting these vicious sentences. 3 months, I mean, that's summertime for Italians. It's like, give me a break. So to say that he got off easy is an understatement. And yes, granted, I didn't have any serious injuries, right? At least you can't tell right now. But the reality was that I had long-term effects from that, right? Just, I don't even want to get into that. But the point is, I could have easily had some real, I could have lost my eye, for example. And for what? Because these idiots think that they can just inflict violence on someone because they don't like them, or because, I don't know, whatever the perceived issue is. But I can tell you firsthand that I don't, and like someone said this, I can't remember who, what the tweet was, but it was saying that the new American dream is to live as far away from these people as possible. And absolutely, I couldn't agree more. Um, the level of violence and degeneracy that these people have and push, and you could say it's nurtured, but I beg to differ. I think it's definitely more of a nature thing. I don't even know if the culture could change that aspect of it, right? Because if I told you that I got sucker punched with brass knuckles, what in your mind, who would you think would do that? You think it's a white middle class kid that would do that? No, absolutely not. The starter pack for someone who's willing to do some grimy stuff like that, right, would be someone that has a baby mother, an absent father, Section 8 food stamps. I mean, it's like very predictable the type of mindset that would produce an individual like that, right? A deadbeat like that. And so I have no sympathy for these people at all, and I don't feel bad that they're getting crushed by a quote unquote system. If anything, it just goes to show you their lack of responsibility to take responsibility for their own individual actions. They like to say it's always someone else, but you got to ask yourself and be genuinely honest with yourself. Do you want to live in a white world or a black world? It's really that simple.